Hello and welcome to this short video on how to replace the display panel on pretty much any modern Latitude system. Today we're going to be working on a Dell Latitude e7440, and full disclosure here, this system has a bad motherboard, so it is not operational. We will however be able to run the display diagnostics, which is a useful tool to help you determine if the problem is actually your display or your motherboard. So let's get started. So to start off, I'm going to plug this system in and open it. It's very easy to run the display diagnostics. All you do is you need to hold down the D key on the keyboard and press the power button. And this will run you through a color cycle. This should help to show you if you have any major screen defects, issues with inconsistent brightness, any cracks or other damage like that. So in this case, I am going to be removing and then reinstalling the same display in this unit. So if you have a laptop like this in front of you, you can probably see that this front bezel is fairly flush and extends all the way around, and there's a light kind of crack around the edge here. Now what I usually do is I take my fingernails and find a place where there's a little bit of a gap and pull it up like this. You could use a spudger tool for this, but I like using my fingers because I can feel exactly how much I'm pushing on the LCD screen. The main thing that you don't want to do here is put pressure on the screen that's going to cause pressure issues by damaging the actual screen itself. So I've got my fingernails under this, and I'm just going to kind of gently pull up here. Now there are a series of clips in here. Now as you can see, this plastic is both thin and pretty flexible. So as long as you're fairly gentle about this, and the main trick that I find in getting this to release is that I wiggle it back and forth like this as I go around, kind of flexing it, and that'll help you get all those little pieces out, those little clips, without damaging them. I'm going to rotate this and start working on the other side here. See, as I'm going, I'm wiggling this around. Now if you're working on a system that has an integrated latch, when you get to this point you will want to move the toggle to move the latch out of the way while you release around this area. So just gently moving slowly but firmly, or you're not going to get it. Get all the way around. Feel something lifting up here underneath, so I'm going to just take a look at what that is. The adhesive. And there we are. At this point, and this is pretty consistent across most Dell systems, you're going to have 4 screws, 2 here and 2 here. I'm just going to take those off. Now another option if you need to replace the display is to replace the whole display assembly, but that's actually more complicated and, in my opinion, more difficult to do. You do have to be careful when you're doing this, but it's actually a simpler operation than replacing the whole panel. Because when you replace the whole panel, you have to remove the bottom of the case, you have to route all the internal, both the Wi-Fi and sometimes Bluetooth antennas, as well as the actual data cable and the USB cable that powers the webcam. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back around now. I'm going to very gently flip the screen down like this. I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. So next we have, this is the actual LVDS connector that connects to the back of your panel. So as you can see, there are large don't touch areas here, and this area is very delicate. So this is part of this that you need to be really careful for. So I'm going to lift up this adhesive and slowly pull it back, and I'm both pulling it in that direction and up to try to get it to release. Kind of working back and forth. And I'm going to remove this little piece of foam. Now at this point you can't just pull it out. There is actually a small clip. What you need to do is use a small spudger tool or a fingernail or something like that to unclip this clip right here that hinges down and holds it tight. So then I can pull this off like that. So at this point you would remove this display, and we will just pretend I'm putting a different panel back in. So I'm just going to reverse the whole process here so you can see what it looks like. When you're putting this connector back on, it is important to make sure that you're lining it up properly. Not, trying to put it in diagonally, that you're actually putting it in straight. Just like that. I'm going to put this clip back down. This is one good way to make sure that you actually have it in properly. This clip won't clip unless it's where it belongs. I'm going to take that little piece of adhesive, try to do a better job of centering it, and then put this tape back down. I'm going to carefully lift it up and straighten this back out. I'm just going to show you a detail here. There are, at each of the locations that have screws, little indexing pins. And so when you're putting your display in, you want to make sure that the little pin in the display assembly lines up with the hole in the display. Now we're going to just work in the opposite direction. I'm going to put these screws back in. Okay, now we're ready to put the bezel back on. I usually like to start at the top for this because I find that the bottom needs significantly more wiggling to get itself fully seated, and that's just how it's always seemed to work well for me. So here we go. I'm going to, essentially the reverse of what we did to remove it, I'm going to apply gentle yet firm pressure, working my way around. And if I miss a clip my first time around, it'll get a little easier to see once you've finished putting this bezel on, and you can go back and work it in. You can see here it's kind of bubbling up a little bit. That's, as you get the whole thing down, that's sort of how it will show you where you haven't quite clipped it in properly. That's all there is to it. I hope this has been helpful.